Before we dive into the darkness, hit subscribe if you dare, drop a like if you're still breathing, and comment which inmate you think won't make it out alive. Now, let's begin. The storm over rural Pennsylvania rolled like a growling beast as the sirens sliced through the night. State troopers tore down the backroads in a frenzy, their headlights scanning rain-soaked pines as radio chatter erupted with panic. A prison transport bus had crashed, flipped onto its side like a broken animal, leaving twisted metal across the two-lane highway. 3 guards were down. 2 unresponsive. 1 gone without a trace. But that wasn't the haunting part. What forced the panic through every agency phone line was the fact that the bus had been carrying 5 inmates, men known across the system as walking catastrophes. Men whose cases were so twisted, so calculated, so destabilizing, that authorities rarely housed them within a mile of each other. And now, after the crash, they were gone. Rain hammered the roof of the command tent as Major Lorna Chase stepped out of her SUV, her boots sinking into mud. She had worked fugitive recovery for 21 years, but nothing had prepared her for this. She stared at the wreck, broken windows, slashed seat belts, and blood on the asphalt. Too much blood. But none of it appeared to belong to the inmates. Behind her, a forensic tech spoke through chattering teeth. "Major, we've got something." She approached the back of the bus where one of the metal bars had been warped outward, bent by brute force. But the real discovery was the message smeared across the interior wall, drawn with the palm of a bloody hand. "We never should have been put on the same road." Chase inhaled sharply. Damn it! This wasn't an escape. This was coordinated. The moment the news hit national circuits, every agency from the U.S. Marshals to Interpol lit up in synchronized chaos. These weren't petty criminals. Each man carried a file that read like a horror novella, each with a specialty so distinct that investigators once joked they formed the deadliest toolkit ever assembled. Noah Reddick, the Phantom Planner, a former structural engineer who weaponized his intelligence to build escape routes that shouldn't have been possible. No fingerprints. No evidence. No trace. Damon Klein, the soft-spoken sociopath. Polite, gentle, articulate, and responsible for a string of contract hits nobody saw coming. His victims often opened the door smiling. Rex Hollander, the Riot King, a towering ex-gang enforcer rumored to have sparked 4 of the largest prison riots in the last decade. The kind of man correctional officers refused to look directly in the eyes. Elias Thorne, the chemist, a former pharmaceutical researcher who developed toxins so subtle victims thought they were dying of natural causes. Nearly got away with it, until he didn't. Isaac Ward, the quiet prophet, not religious, but charismatic enough to gather followers behind bars, followers who would do anything he asked. Anything. 5 monsters. 1 overturned bus. 0 leads. Chase exhaled, feeling the weight of the case tightening around her ribs. We need their profiles broadcast everywhere. No hesitation. These men together are a weaponized storm. But as soon as the manhunt began, strange things happened across 3 states. Fires set as diversions, unexplained transportation outages, a rural communications tower sabotaged. Whoever escaped the bus had resources, planning, coordination, and each incident pointed to a single terrifying possibility. They weren't running separately. They were running as a unit. By sunrise, investigators found their first real clue. A farmer 30 miles east reported his barn had been broken into. Inside, officers found 5 sets of soaked prison uniforms discarded on the dirt floor, and footprints leading away toward the forest. But something felt off. Chase studied the scene, crouching beside the muddy tracks. "These prints, they're too deliberate." "What do you mean?" a deputy asked. She pointed. "The spacing, the depth, the direction. These are staged. Someone wanted us to follow them." The deputy swallowed. "A trap." "Worse," she said. "A misdirection." The prints led investigators toward the river, where they found a small fishing boat missing. Helicopters swept the water, assuming the inmates had crossed. But Chase's instincts clawed at her. Something didn't add up. The direction of the tracks. The lack of drag marks. The spotless barn floor around the window. "These men are masterminds," she said aloud, pacing. Reddick wouldn't leave something as primitive as footprints unless he wanted to send a message. She radioed all teams. Hold the river search. They're not heading east. They're doubling back. But before the update could stabilize the operation, another chilling report came in. A rest-stop security guard, 20 miles west, opposite the direction of the footprints, had been found unconscious near the dumpsters. His keys, radio, and truck were gone. The inmates weren't on foot anymore. They were mobile. Chase's hands trembled as she reviewed the footage from the rest stop's exterior camera. For a moment, the screen flickered with static. Then it showed them, 5 silhouettes moving in perfect sync. No speaking. No hesitation. Each man performed his role with surgical precision. Thorne wiped down surfaces. Klein scanned for witnesses. Hollander positioned himself to block the guard's view. Reddick worked the door mechanism. Ward watched everything with eerie calm. "These guys aren't just escaping," Chase whispered. "They're executing a mission." But what mission? And why now? As the command center erupted into a flurry of theories, logistical models, and risk projections, something else emerged, something disturbing buried deep in the original transport manifest. A young analyst approached Chase with a folder clutched to his chest. His face had that pale, haunted look investigators get when they've connected dots that should never touch. "Major, there's something wrong with the transfer order." She flipped open the folder, scanning the forms. Her brow furrowed. "This doesn't match standard routing. Why would a federal transport detour onto a rural state road?" "That's the problem, ma'am," the analyst said. "The transport wasn't supposed to be anywhere near this county. The route was changed last minute." Chase froze. "By who?" "We checked. The digital signature authorizing the reroute," he swallowed. "It came from inside the Department of Corrections. High clearance." The tent fell silent. Rain battered the canvas. Someone inside the system had rerouted that bus. Someone wanted those 5 inmates together. Someone wanted them to crash. She clenched the manifest, feeling her pulse spike. "Are you telling me this was an inside job?" The analyst nodded, voice shaking. "Yes, ma'am. And there's more." He pointed to the last page. There was supposed to be a 6th inmate on that bus. Chase's eyes widened. "A 6th?" He nodded. But their name was removed. No record of who it was. No booking photo. Nothing. Chase stared at the erased line, the blank space where a ghost inmate should have been. And in that instant she knew. The escape wasn't the beginning. It was the aftermath of something much worse. Her radio crackled violently. "Major, we found something at the crash site you'll want to see." She hurried toward the wreckage, heart pounding. A crime scene tech held up a small metal object wrapped in plastic, something dug from beneath the bus. Chase pulled it close. It was a badge. Government issue. Scorched. Nearly unrecognizable. And when she wiped away the dirt, she saw the symbol etched into the metal. Her breath caught in her throat. The inmates weren't the only ones on that bus. Someone else had been there, someone the department had tried to erase. And whoever it was, they were the reason the 5 deadliest inmates in America had just vanished into the storm. The rain had thinned to a cold mist by the time Major Lorna Chase knelt beside the scorched badge. She didn't speak. No one did. Everyone standing in that muddy clearing understood the weight of what that metal represented. Whoever the 6th inmate was, they weren't supposed to exist. And someone with federal authority had gone to disturbing lengths to ensure that. The tech shifted nervously. "We found it wedged under the rear axle. Looks like it might have been ripped off, maybe during the struggle." Chase turned the badge over, brushing away grime until faint letters appeared. Not a full name. Not an agency. Just a partial engraving, 2 letters burned into the corner like a brand. D.C. Her stomach tightened. Washington-based clearance. "Ma'am," a deputy said, "is it possible the 6th inmate wasn't an inmate at all?" She didn't answer, because the question was already clawing through her mind. A government operative on a prison transport bus, riding alongside 5 of the most dangerous convicts in the country? No paperwork. No digital trace. A phantom. And now missing. If the inmates had discovered who was on board with them, the crash might not have been an accident. Chase rose. We need the entire bus re-examined. Every inch. Something happened inside before that vehicle flipped. While investigators rushed to peel apart the wreck with new purpose, Chase returned to the command tent, where a fresh wave of chaos waited. Screens flickered with live feeds. Maps were littered with red circles and shifting predictions. Officers moved with frantic energy, but Chase noticed a thread running through the noise: fear. Not fear of the inmates, but fear of the unknown. A tactical analyst waved her over. "Major, you're going to want to see this." He pulled up a satellite map marked with the diversion incidents: fires, sabotage towers, blocked rural roads. When connected, the points formed a path. But not a straight one. It curved west, then south, then hooked toward an industrial region near the Ohio border. A location Chase recognized instantly: Falcon Ridge. A shuttered federal holding facility known for two things: secrecy and off-the-books operations. The kind of place officials denied even existed. "Are you saying they're heading there?" she asked. "I'm saying someone wants us to think they're unpredictable," the analyst replied. "But these detours aren't random. They're strategic delays. They're slowing us down. Why head to a closed black site facility?" He exhaled. Maybe because the sixth person on that bus came from there. Before Chase could respond, the tent lights flickered. A communications officer shouted, "We're losing feed from the west surveillance towers." Chase's heart lurched. That's not a coincidence. They're close. Across 3 states, law enforcement mobilized like a hornet swarm. Roadblocks appeared on highways. Field teams swept forests. Drones buzzed above empty cornfields. Yet every time authorities thought they cornered the fugitives, something went wrong: a false lead, a sabotaged vehicle, a mysterious power outage. And the public was beginning to panic. News outlets ran non-stop coverage. Commentators speculated on motives. Some believed the inmates were fleeing the country. Others warned that coordinated criminals this resourceful were capable of something far worse. But for Chase, the real terror wasn't what the men had already done. It was what they were preparing to do. By nightfall, another break in the case arrived. A trucker had reported seeing a white security pickup abandoned under a highway overpass near Ridgeport. It matched the guard's stolen vehicle. A team was dispatched immediately. When Chase arrived, the scene radiated tension. Officers fanned out with rifles as forensic teams circled the truck. The doors were open. The glove compartment emptied. Muddy footprints lined the pavement, but in scattered, chaotic directions, not the synchronized pattern from earlier footage. She stepped closer and spotted something on the truck seat: a folded piece of torn map paper with a single handwritten word across it: "Tomorrow." Her pulse thudded. They're planning something time-sensitive. A lieutenant hurried toward her. "Major, take a look at this." They led her to the rear of the truck, where a toolbox had been pried open. Inside were zip ties, gloves, rope, items the inmates clearly hadn't taken. But beneath them was a small flash drive sealed in waterproof plastic. "Found taped under the floor mat," the lieutenant said. Chase stared at it. "They wanted us to find this." Back at the incident command post, a digital forensics specialist loaded the drive into an isolated workstation. Lines of corrupted data scrolled across the screen before clearing into a single video file. "Play it," Chase ordered. The video crackled to life with distorted audio and grainy pixels. Then a face appeared, calm, expressionless, eyes reflecting a cold intelligence that sent chills down the room. Isaac Ward, the quiet prophet. He spoke softly, as though delivering a sermon. "Major Chase, we know you're watching. You're persistent, strategic, predictable." He smiled, a slow, unsettling curl of the lips. "We respect that." The room went still. Ward continued. "But you're chasing ghosts. Everything you think we've done for a reason. Everything we've left behind, we've left for you." Behind him, shadows flickered. The silhouettes of the other inmates. All 5 alive. All 5 watching. Ward leaned closer to the camera. "You want the 6th man?" "So do we. But we're not trying to escape him." A pause. "We're trying to find him." Chase felt the air drain from her lungs. Ward lowered his voice. He betrayed us. He betrayed the system. But most importantly, he betrayed you. You'll understand soon. Static swallowed his last words before the screen cut to black. Officers erupted into debate. Theories flew. But Chase pushed through the noise, voice sharp. Pull up every sealed file tied to Falcon Ridge. Every operative, every experiment, every unofficial transfer. Someone scrubbed this sixth man's identity, but he's out there. And the inmates, they want him. Major, the forensic tech whispered, his voice shaking. There's something else. He pointed to the edge of the video frame. A timestamp. Dated yesterday. Recorded inside the Falcon Ridge facility. But Falcon Ridge had been abandoned for 3 years. At least, that's what they were all told. Chase stepped back, the truth crashing down like a blow. Not only had the inmates returned to Falcon Ridge, they had filmed the message from inside, which meant they had already reached the one place authorities assumed was impossible to breach. And whatever waited inside that forgotten structure, whatever happened to the sixth man, they were already in the middle of it. Chase grabbed her jacket. Mobilize every available unit. We're moving on Falcon Ridge. The analysts stared at her, wide-eyed. Ma'am, what if the sixth man is still there? Chase's voice was low, grim. Then we find him before they do. But as she climbed into her vehicle, the radio crackled with an urgent transmission from the aerial reconnaissance team. Major Chase, Falcon Ridge perimeter breached. Multiple heat signatures detected inside the facility. And Major, you're not going to believe this. The transmission dissolved into static. Chase froze. Repeat. What did you see? Silence. Then a broken whisper. There aren't 5 inmates inside. There are 6. Her blood ran cold. Then the final words from Air Recon slashed through the static. And the 6th signature doesn't match any file in the system. The night loomed over Falcon Ridge like a held breath, an abandoned fortress of concrete and rust rising from the treeline, its floodlights long dead, its windows black as missing eyes. Major Lorna Chase stepped out of her vehicle and stared at the structure that officials had sworn was decommissioned. Now it pulsed with heat signatures. 6 of them. Her team moved quietly through the overgrown perimeter, boots brushing past waist-high weeds and shattered glass. Every step seemed to echo through history, because Falcon Ridge wasn't just a facility. It was a graveyard of failed programs, dissolved operations, and covert projects that never made it into archives. A place that shouldn't exist. A place someone didn't want remembered. Chase raised her fist for silence. Stay sharp. We don't know what we're walking into. They breached the main entrance. No resistance. No traps. Only darkness and an unsettling hum in the walls, as if the entire building were breathing. The team fanned out, light slicing through dust and peeling paint. Bulletproof glass panels were cracked. Rooms once filled with equipment now lay gutted. Floor markings hinted at former labs, interrogation chambers, and containment halls that had been scrubbed clean, too clean. And the deeper they moved, the colder the air became. A deputy whispered, "Ma'am, if this place was shut down, why does it have power?" Chase didn't answer. The question felt like a knife waiting to be twisted. They reached the central observatory, a circular command room with a wide glass overlooking lower levels. Computers sat dormant, screens dark. Chairs were left mid-stride, as if the people inside had walked out one day and never returned. Then a door slammed somewhere below. Hard. Deliberate. Chase motioned the team forward. They descended the steel stairs, floor by floor, until they reached sublevel 3. A long hallway stretched in front of them, lined with reinforced cell doors. Some were open, others sealed. But the cell at the end, the one with yellow tape across the frame, glowed faintly from beneath the door. Boots crept closer. Weapons raised. Heartbeats thundered in ears. When Chase pressed her hand to the door, she felt vibrations pulsing through the metal, like a generator or machine working on the other side. She nodded. 2 deputies unlatched the panel, and the door creaked open. Inside, the 5 inmates stood in a semicircle: Reddick, Klein, Hollander, Thorne, Ward, each of them facing a glass enclosure at the center of the room. Their backs were to the entrance, their bodies motionless. But inside the glass, someone else stood waiting. A man, late 40s, hair shaved close, wearing a jumpsuit without markings, hands resting calmly at his sides. The sixth man. He lifted his head slowly, as if he'd felt Chase arrive. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, unervingly steady. Ward turned slightly, acknowledging Chase. "Major." "Right on time." Her voice sliced the silence. "Step away from the enclosure." "No." But Reddick spoke instead, tone methodical. "We didn't come here to escape. We came to finish what should have been done years ago." "What are you talking about?" Chase snapped. "Who is he?" The sixth man smiled. A calm, chilling smile. "You've spent the last 48 hours chasing ghosts, Major Chase. Allow me to introduce myself." He touched the glass gently. "My name is Adrian Vale." The name meant nothing, but the expressions on her deputies' faces said everything. One whispered, "Ma'am, Adrian Vale is classified. He's from Project Meridian." Chase froze. That program was dismantled. "No," Vale said softly. "They tried to dismantle me." The inmates shifted uneasily, as if even they were wary of him. Ward stepped forward. "He was our handler, Major. Our evaluator. Our architect. The man who studied us inside Falcon Ridge before the government abandoned the program. Before they erased us." Chase felt a coldness spread across her spine. Falcon Ridge wasn't a prison. It was a testing ground. Vale smiled approvingly. "Now you're catching on." Hollander clenched his fists. "You used us. Set us up. Turned us into experiments." "We were supposed to die in here," Thorne added, voice trembling with memory. "Instead, they buried the facility and left us to rot in other prisons, alone." Chase's breath caught. This wasn't an escape. This was vengeance. Reckoning. Reddick's jaw tightened. "We tracked him for years. Until we finally found evidence that he wasn't dead, he was reassigned. Hidden. Protected." Ward tilted his head, his voice a deadly whisper. "And then you put us all in one bus, Major. All 5 men Vale experimented on, traveling to the same destination." Chase felt her blood turn to ice. "You think I arranged that?" Ward smiled almost kindly. "No. He did." All eyes shifted to Vale. The sixth man didn't flinch. Chase stepped closer, fury boiling beneath her calm. "You rerouted the bus." "I needed all of them back," Vale said. "The program was never finished. Their potential was never realized. Separately they were volatile, unstable. But together," he spread his arms, "together they were magnificent." Reddick snarled, "You tried to recreate us." "And failed," Vale admitted. "Your successors didn't survive the process." Chase's pulse roared. "You're sick." Vale leaned toward the glass, eyes burning with something unhinged. "I'm a visionary. They were designed to work as one unit: intelligence, charisma, force, manipulation, execution. A perfect organism made of 5 men. The world was not ready for them." Hollander spat on the floor. "We were never yours." A faint hum rose beneath the floor as the containment chamber powered up. Chase noticed too late. "Everyone back!" she yelled. But Adrian Vale pressed something against the glass, an activation chip. The room shook as the chamber locks disengaged, and the glass began to rise. The inmates turned, instinctively forming a defensive arc. Even killers could sense when something inhuman was standing in front of them. Vale stepped forward, unarmed, but radiating a kind of dangerous calm that infected the air. "Let me show you what your potential truly looks like." Ward whispered, "He's not here to escape. He's here to start the program again." "No one move," Chase shouted. But Vale moved first. He lunged, not toward the inmates, but toward the control panel on the wall. His hand slammed a red switch. Emergency shutters began dropping across the facility. Metal doors screamed downward. Chase fired. The bullet ricocheted off the panel. Vale vanished into the corridor behind the falling shutter. "After him!" Chase yelled. but the door slammed shut, sealing Vale on the other side. The facility roared to life, lights flashing, alarms blaring, vents opening with a hiss. Ward's face paled. He's flooding the lower levels. He's activating the conditioning chambers. Hollander backed up. He's trying to recreate what he did to us. Chase grabbed the nearest communication handset. Command, this is Major Chase. We need full tactical response. Facility is active. Vale is initiating containment protocol. But the line was dead. Thorne pointed shakily at the ceiling. He's cut us off. Reddick took a step toward Chase. Major, you need us to stop him. The words hung like a guillotine. And in that moment, Chase made a decision she would question for the rest of her life. She unlocked their cuffs. Then move. The inmates surged forward, now weaponized not by Vale, but against him. The chase through Falcon Ridge was a blur of steel, darkness, alarms, and sprinting silhouettes. Doors slammed. Lights flickered. The old facility groaned under the strain of a program waking from the dead. But by the time Chase and the inmates reached the central chamber, Vale was gone. The auxiliary tunnel blown open. The night swallowing his trail. Only one thing remained. A single sheet of paper pinned to the control console. Chase pulled it closer, her hands trembling. A handwritten note. You freed them, Major. Now let's see who they become without a cage. Beneath it, a list of cities, dates, coordinates, plans. Ward exhaled, horrified. He's restarting the mission. Chase folded the paper with shaking hands. He won't get far, she whispered. Ward looked at her with a strange, grim certainty. He already has. Outside, the sky cracked with thunder. Somewhere in the darkness, Adrian Vale was watching. Waiting. Beginning again. And as dawn broke over Falcon Ridge, one thing was clear. They thought the system created monsters. But the real monster had just escaped. If you thought this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.